Earlier tonight in class, we were working on a basic technique, and we were looking at how we can take this technique and apply it to multiple situations. And we were going over some of the principles involved within that I'd like to share with you now. So the technique that we were working on is reversing mace. It's a pretty basic technique. If you study Kempo, you're probably familiar with it. Even if you study a different system, you're probably familiar with this sequence because it's a pretty fundamental sequence of motion. Now the basic technique, the basic version taught in Kempo, he throws a straight punch and we move up the circle. We have an inward block that then comes back around as our other hand comes in and checks, and then we have a back fist that sneaks underneath. So we have an inward block and a back fist. And now the first lesson was that you should look at any sequence of motion as if it's a pattern, and then try to understand, try to explore how you can adapt that pattern to multiple situations. So let's just take one part of that pattern. We had an inward block that circled into a back fist. Now I'm going to switch sides with Ben, and now he's going to do a roundhouse punch, and now we're going to add a prefix to our technique. We're going to insert an outward block. Now from this position, we can use that very same pattern, can't we? We can follow in with an inward block. In this case, we're likely going to have to expand our movement, but it's the same fundamental movement nonetheless that then can circle into a back fist. And then from there you can come up with any number of endings. Now the other part of the lesson was that a particular technique may present itself in subtly different ways. Now what I mean is we actually have that same sequence within one of our White Crane forms. It's a basic movement within White Crane, but it's presented in a slightly different manner. And the reason for that, the reason it looks different, is the principle that's at play. And so that's the other part of the lesson. It's important when you see something being practiced in a different system that looks familiar, perhaps it looks similar yet different, don't immediately reject that sequence because it's different. See, because it's different, there may be an additional lesson there. So, for instance, the White Crane sequence, we're going to use a different block. White Crane practices different principles, has its own strategies of manifesting power. We're not going to get into that today. We have some other videos on that if you check out our channel. But it has its own method of manifesting power. It has its own strategies that it employs. But you can see the sequence looks very similar. The White Crane sequence is a little softer. White Crane tends to be a hard, soft system. It uses some softer, more subtle methods of manifesting power. So there's just a look at, as I said, a basic technique as taught in Kempo, and how you can explore the principles, the movements within the technique, develop an understanding of the principles, and look at how you can adapt it in different ways.